Hello friends, welcome again to SQL with Manoj. Today I'll talk about StretchDB. That is a new feature that will be available in SQL Server 2016. So right now the StretchDB feature is not complete, and with the CTB 2 version you can use it with some of its features. So here I'll be discussing about what is StretchDB. So StretchDB is nothing but a stretch database that lets you archive your historical data transparently and securely in Azure SQL Database. So here we are talking about two types of databases. One is on-premise database that you use daily, like the one that installed on your laptop, on your office machine, or your office or your production server. The other type of database is Microsoft SQL Azure Database. That is the Microsoft PaaS offering. PaaS means platform as a service offering for its own cloud, and that is SQL Azure Database. So here what it will do is the stretch database feature will stretch means move the data from on-premise table to the Azure SQL Database table. So here your on-premise database will get associated or linked to a SQL database via a link server, and the table that you want to stretch will be stretched to Azure SQL DB. So let's say, as you can see here, the order history table. So the red database that you see here is the on-premise database, that is your SQL Server 2016, and the blue box that you see over here is the SQL Azure database, that is Microsoft Cloud Database. So the order history table that sits in your on-premise SQL database, you can stretch that table to cloud. So sometimes what happens is our history tables, like here in case the order history tables become so large, it occupies your whole database, and it impacts your other queries, because every time you're not going to access the historical data, right? And let's say in your order table the current data and the historical data reside. So if you are querying your current data, because every time while you are doing any shopping or something, the order table will get updated, and the historical records in that order table will not be retrieved or touched any point of time. So while maintaining that table, it will be a performance problem, right? So the idea is to move all that cold data that you're not going to use to Azure. The idea is to have a database configured to allow extension of one or more of its tables to SQL Azure database. This extension of Azure can archive transparently cold data without change access to information requirements when the table is queried. All this while enjoying the very attractive storage cost proposed by Microsoft Azure. So as you can see here, the Microsoft Azure storage cost is very low. So what you can do is all the cold data that you're not going to query anyway, you can move it to SQL Azure. So how does a stretch database works? So this is the internet boundary, and on the left side you can see on-premise, and on the right side you can see the Azure database. Okay, so these are some StretchDB terms that you will be seeing. The local database is your on-premise database. The remote endpoint is your Azure database endpoint. What does local data means? Local data, that is the hot data. Eligible data is not yet moved but will be moved. Okay, remote data is the cold data that is already been moved to SQL Azure. Okay, so currently the SQL Server 2016 is with the CTP 2 version. There will be some changes to the CTP. So the limitations with the current CTP 2 is you can currently archive the whole table. There is no provision right now to only move the certain rows based upon the where clause. Update and delete operations are not supported right now on the stretch enabled tables. Okay, let's now move to the demo. Okay, I have created this script, a step-by-step script to enable the StretchDB feature. So with the first step, we'll be enabling the remote data archive option, that is 0 by default. So here you can see change from 0 to 1. It means that the remote data archive feature is enabled. Step 2 says that create a new database. Okay, so we'll create a new database with this name, StretchDB. Okay, a new database, StretchDB. Okay, and you can see here your database is ready. Okay, now it says check your Azure subscription, because you have to have an Azure subscription in order to have this new feature working. So here you can see you can check your subscription at http manage.windowsazure.com. so you can log in here. If you don't have any subscription, you can create a new subscription. So here I have already logged into my Windows Azure dashboard. It shows me what all items I have created. So right now I don't have anything, but you can create all these items. So SQL database, Azure database sits here. So I don't have any database right now. and I've logged in my own account, manuB22@gmail.com. This is my email ID, and I've used this email ID for my Azure subscription. Okay, so now step 4 says enable the database for Stretch to Azure. So what I'll do is I'll just right click and go to task and enable database for Stretch. I'll enable this database for Stretch. What it'll do is it'll create a Azure SQL database for me and link that SQL database with this StretchDB that is on premise. Okay, so this wizard is inbuilt in SQL Server that will take you to Azure and create your database. So here I've already signed in with my personal email account and it shows my subscription. Click next. Here in this window you'll have to select your Azure location. So I'll just select Southeast Asia. Server admin login. So here you have to create your login because SQL Server Azure is not a Windows machine. The Windows NT login does not work here, so you have to create a SQL account here, right? So I'll just make SAMANOJSDB01, okay, and I will copy it also, apply the password. So you should pass the typical requirement of a password, capital characters, small characters and special characters, and click next and then finish. Okay, so here it will validate your existing StretchDB database that is on premise, and after validating and passing it will go ahead and provision your Azure SQL database server and create a SQL database for StretchDB on SQL Azure, that is Microsoft Cloud. Okay, I'll copy the username over here that I created, that is SAManoj SDB01. So creation of this Azure SQL database takes a bit time because it has to create a full-fledged SQL server for you where you can log in and run your queries. Ultimately you will see all the things are passed. Okay, so as you can see everything is passed. So here okay, if you go to your SQL Azure management portal, here you can see a new database created. So previously the database was not there when I showed you, and if you just click on this it will give you all the details. Okay, and this database you can connect from your SSMS. You just have to note down the server name from here, so you can just copy this, okay, and you can log into your SQL Azure database from here. Just click on connect and database engine, paste the server name here that we got from the management portal here. Okay, so the name says remote data archive Manoj Pandey lab. This is my machine name. StretchDB, this is the database name that we gave, and 2015-88 the date today, and some random ID .database.windows.net and the port number 1433. So this is not Windows authentication. SQL Azure database works with SQL Server authentication, so we will use the SAMANOJ SDB01 and the password. Okay, I'll remember the password and click connect. Okay, so this is the SQL database, and this is just like your on-premise database. You can create tables here, you can query it, you can do anything that you want to do that you already do with your on-premise database here. So as you can see here, this server is we have connected to it. Databases, right now you can see the stretch there is a database created as RDA StretchDB, right, with some GUIDs over here. And here let's go to the table. So there is no table because we don't have created any table yet, right? Okay, so we have successfully created this database, right? Now we'll move ahead and go to step number 5 to create a new table and enable it for a stretch. Okay, so I'll use the StretchDB database, create a new table over here, that is employee stretch. Here employee ID and employee name. Okay, I'll insert some employee names, insert into db.employee stretch employee name, and this employee ID is the identity, so automatically those will be generated. So I'm calling it a batch one because I'm inserting 1 2 3 4 5 records here, right? And let's see those records, right? So you can see 5 records. Okay, now enable the table for a stretch. Okay, so I'll refresh it, the table will come here, employee stretch. What I'll do is I'll refresh the database and I'll go to tables and I'll refresh it, and if I right click on it I'll get stretch option enabled. So this, so you have just to select this option, enable stretch table, yes. So internally what it will do, it will create a similar table over here. If I just refresh it, it'll create a similar table over here, that is dbo underscore because the schema name is dbo this, and it will create this table with some GUIDs suffixed over here. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll open a new query parallel to it to see how these both are working. Okay, so here, okay, now let's see. So I'll do a simple select star from this table. Okay, so what it will give me is these many number of rows. So you can see here I have connected to my laptop instance, and here this is the SQL database server. So here SQL database server, automatically these rows, these 5 rows get copied over here to the SQL database table, that is employee this particular name, right? And this shows batch id 1. Okay, now we'll load some more data in the in some more batches. I'll insert 2 more records, right? I'll call it a batch 2, and I'll do a select star. So here we can see, so it took some time, and here we can see, right, these 2 records got inserted with employee id 6 and 7. And if I do a select here, you can see these 2 records again got created, and this flagged with batch number 2. Okay, let's go to batch 3. Okay, and here I'll insert 2 more records. Okay, and I'll just select them. So it takes some time because in this point of time it is doing a trickle move of those records. So here you can see, right, 8 9, these 2 records created here. And if I just do this, okay, so it might be in the process, but and it will create those records. Okay, and you have to wait a bit, right? So these 2 records are moved over here with the batch id 3, right? And okay, let's insert 100 records. So what I'll do is in the batch 4 I'll insert 100 records to see whether all these records will move here and how much time they will take. So here you can see I have now 109 records here. So 9 records we inserted earlier and 100 records we inserted here. And if I'll query this, see, till here these records we inserted in first batch, second batch, third batch till 9, and after 10 you can see batch number 4 it inserted all 100 records, right, totaling 109 records, right? Okay, so now what we'll do is, as I told you, when you are enabling a table for a stretch, all the records on that table right now are moved to the Azure database. What I'll do is I'll check the space of the table dbo.employee stretch, right? So what it shows me, rows are 109, reserved is this, and data is 16 KB, right? So it shows me the data is 16 KB. Okay, as you can see here, 16 KB. What if I just choose local only, right? So local only gives me the number of records, number of rows, and the size, how much it has taken in local. So it shows 0 rows in local, and reserved is 16 here, above it was 48, right? And data is 8 and it was 16 KB, right? And if I see remote means the SQL Azure, how much it has taken space, it shows me 109 records, 32 KB, and data is 8K, right? So it shows that okay, all these 109 records have been moved to SQL Azure. That's why here if I set the mode as local only, it shows me 0 rows. If I choose the mode remote only, it gives me 109 records, right? So there are some more DMVs and some system views to check the status of the migration and check the tables over here. Remote data archive database. So let's see what it shows me. It shows me the remote database ID, the remote database name, and the server ID and the credential ID. And let's see what is this remote database ID is. Okay, so it is employee stretch, right, that we just created here, employee stretch, and with the object ID this, and remote database ID, and the remote database name this. So as you can see also here, the same object ID of this table is being used here, 8855788193, right? So it takes the employee ID here and suffix it with the this table name to make sure that these associations are unique. Okay, so in the batch 5 what I'm doing is I'm inserting top 1000 records. So just to make just to see like how it manages data, let's insert 1000 records again, and we'll again see the space used, right? So let's see, 1000 records are inserted here, moved here. Yeah, all the 1000 records are moved here, totaling to 1109 records, right? And it shows the fifth batch, right? Batch ID 5 for all those 1000 records. Okay, and let's see the space used, remote only. It shows the space used as 1109 and reserve this data this. But if I see what is the local space that is on my premise server, okay, it shows me this, right? That it tells me that the table is stretched, all the data has been moved to SQL Azure. There are 0 rows in local, taking space, taking this much space, that's very less space, right? And if you can see in the remote means SQL Azure, this space has been taken and these records are moved there. Okay, so as I told you earlier in the slide, delete is not supported right now, so you might see this error. Update and delete of rows eligible for migration table is not allowed because of use of remote data archive. This is it, and I showed you how to enable a stretch database and how to create a table and stretch it to Azure DB. I also showed you how you can connect a SQL Azure database from your SSMS and connect to your cloud database. And the StretchDB created this database, and when I enabled the employee stretch table, it created this employee stretch table. And as and when I inserted records in my on-premise employee stretch table, it did a trickle insert to the Azure table also in the immediate fashion, right? So this is all about StretchDB. When the new version of SQL Server will be released, and the other features will be released, like the option to move rows only, certain rows, which will support the where clause, and I'll probably update and share a new video with you. Thanks a lot guys for watching this video. Please like the video if you really like it, and please let me know your comments.